governed by the open meetings law. There's a copy attached to the wall in the back of the room here, and there's the copies on the table. It seems that we have no public comments this morning, so we'll go to a report of our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Scott.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
We have some donuts from Krispy Kreme if the board wants to indulge in some of our staff. We asked our board to go first because we got some government workers. We love donuts, right? Feel free.
I see you back there, Terrence.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not talking about Terrence, I know. And Sal, you're not talking about
This is breeding government workers. Just a couple of things I have. Nell got out of the rehab center yesterday. She's coming home this afternoon. We had a Sal and I were at her graduation ceremony. She looks a lot better, and she should be here next month. We pray for her, and she's been back and forth in the hospital for since October. So, anytime one of our family members has health issues, we always have to be mindful of that. Another commissioner, Jamie Berglund, had a baby, a big baby boy. So we pray for her and our family and the young child. What's his name again? Kai. So. Kudos to that. Also, OHA is a part of Omaha Gives for the next couple of days, so you guys can take one and pass it around. We're going to be really aggressive in identifying a funder for this year. So a donation, we expect that donation from everybody in the room, including the folks at Forestburg Law. I'm joking. But obviously we do a lot of good things with our sports program and our relationships with various organizations throughout the community. We're really proud. Last thing I have, we compiled the frequently asked questions document, and we put it on your desk or on in your area. So we got, as everybody can kind of understand, we have an important decision to make relative to our future, and we're all excited as a staff level to really move this agency forward. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Just frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
It just has questions from other commissioners.
This one is that document, and includes some follow-up questions.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay.
were asked by
Okay.
other board members.
Okay.
Commissioners.
Okay.
I requested Mr. Scott to go into one document
Okay.
for public purposes.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Scott? Then we will move on to the consent agenda. We are going to remove item 3, resolution 2015-24 from the consent agenda. And I just had a question about number 5, so I'm going to pull that off. Anyone else have anything on the consent agenda? The building is number 6. Okay. Does anyone have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion on items 1, 2, and 4.
Most so moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, and 4 on the consent agenda. Can I roll call, please?
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Romano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chair Taylor?
Yes. Okay, so we'll go to item 3 has been removed because there were some issues with the bid, so that may or may not come back.
The bond,
The bond.
we're going to have to move in a different direction. That company did not provide sufficient documentation for us to recommend awarding a contract. So we're going to have to move forward with another company.
Item 5 is the...
Just a follow-up,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. So we're going to go with the company that, or we're going to go with the company that was the second low bidder?
I think...
Or are we going to
we
rebid
go
that?
with, timing issue. We could theoretically go out and rebid it or move forward with the other company. I think the bid was a little bit high with the other company, so.
Really high.
One was 58, one was 114.
Yeah, both of them were, yeah, we were,
So,
And the estimate
Trust
by
me.
the insurance was what, 70?
Yeah.
God, trust me, we had probably a 20-minute meeting about just that issue. One was too high and one was a little high and one was way too low.
the reason why, is because it was so high, there's a reason that we may have to move in that direction because of us getting pushed by HUD to get that unit back online to be leased. But I'll let the staff make the decision and recommend to me which way we go. I'm leaning toward rebidding it and really asking for more contractors in the community to take a look at it. But there is always that consideration from Fed, so I'll just keep you posted. Something's going to happen over the next 30 to 60 days. They have to get the unit back online.
So there's no action we need to take
No,
on
so
this?
I pulled it already, so
Okay.
no, we're just going
Those
to,
are-
we'll pay for that. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions on item
But
3?
this isn't getting tabled.
Yeah, he was gonna go.
I'm talking about the resolution.
Yeah.
So are you, I'm hearing a couple of things. Are you going out for a rebid, or are you awarding? to
I have to
the
talk with staff on that. We'll let you know probably sometime next week. We have to talk to HUD.
Is there anything that we can do here? So we know that you've had 2 bids, now you've got one that's higher. If you do rebid, is there anything that we could do that you would not have to go back through procurement and bring it back to the board? If the bids come in less,
Steve, you want to answer that?
you know, I'm just hearing the
Well, where
timing
is
that
that?
you say that you're tied to, but if you rebid, wouldn't that push it back through procurement and then back up to the next board meeting?
Yeah, you're right.
So I would entertain a motion, and I could move that we would allow you to move forward if you rebid, should the bids come in less than the second bidder that we have today, that you can move forward on the bids unless you'd like to see the companies that come in as part of the bid.
I have a concern about where we go get companies, some of the companies that we go and get, because they're not, they certify and they say that there are certain things that they can do, but when they actually get on the job sometimes, that's why I was concerned about this one, because I've had complaints about this.
So then if we rebid, then it's coming back through.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable if it goes back through the procurement
Yeah.
process
Okay.
and through the committee and through the board. That we shouldn't deviate from
No,
that.
I shouldn't be a policy, and I think that.
We'll try to get it out back to you folks as soon as we can. Hopefully, we can do a 14-day procurement. We have to probably call folks to see if they're interested. That's what we have to do essentially. But we need to push it back through the procurement committee process.
Is there anything else on that item? Item 4, item 5. I pulled off because I simply just had a question on the memorandum of understanding between the City of Omaha and OHA for these healthy home assessments. It looks like they're just being done on public housing properties, or are they public housing in Section 8?
We were gonna just start because we were trying to figure out legality, if we can go to a private landlord's house and do this kind of inspection without their permission. And so I think we're gonna.
Problematic. That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, so we're just gonna do with the public housing.
Public housing.
Yeah.
And I only ask because, what is it said, that we would be doing it on public, let's see, OHA properties, so that would imply public housing properties. But then a little farther down, when it talks about where the assessment would be delivered, the copy of the assessment will be given to the landlord and OHA. If we're just doing public housing properties, OHA is the landlord.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's what they're referring to, but yeah.
okay, since I said saw landlord and OHA, then that maybe they were doing Section 8, so.
No, we kind of got in a discussion that we weren't comfortable going to that,
Okay.
landlords and stuff like that. We just kick it off with public housing and then it's something that we think is viable or needed. We're maybe talking to landlords and seeing if there's something to be able to do. There really is a benefit to both landlords, it's trying to keep their properties up and, make sure there's no fire hazards with extension cords everywhere, but, lead and things like that, so it's a lot of different, and I've got copies of, like, basically all the programs that they're involved with. They do a lot of different things, so that was County Health Department, they have like a grant to get Swiffer sweepers to like help like keep the place clean, and like a little checklist, magnet checklist that they put on the fridge of things that you should be doing to help keep the house healthy and stuff like that.
So at this point, we're just doing.
We're just doing
Public housing, budget coverage. Okay, that's my only question.
I just had a question. The operating reserve funds, are they the same as the COCC funds? What are the differences, the operating reserve funds?
Operating reserve funds are public housing, and that's specific cost center. They're very much separate, restricted funds.
So, so on the balance sheet, they're set up as a separate line item?
Yes.
Okay.
Restricted versus unrestricted funds.
Okay, I'll just follow up with you after.
It's in our financials, and it's delineated by cost center.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any other questions on the MOU with the city?
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 5.
I've got a motion and a second to approve item 5. A roll call?
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Romano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chair Taylor?
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 6, and that would be the purchase of the property at 1805 and 1820, or 1805 Kearney and 1820 Howard.
Yes, I asked that this be pulled off the agenda. I think it's such a significant item that we should not approve it just as a consent item. And then I thought that there were some additional financing items that you were bringing where it changed the number. And the perspective of what you were asking the board to approve was that
Additional finance.
you had indicated that you received an additional offer. You gave us one bank proposal.
I gave you
3.
3.
Yeah, one was provided as an example, and then the other 3 that we received were also provided, so.
In the follow-up information.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's another one
And then
coming.
there's another one
There's another one coming.
coming.
And so then what you're asking the board to approve today is what?
Just the purchase. We're going to negotiate with the 4 prospective banks after the board approves just the purchase of the building.
But here again, when we discussed this quite a bit in Finance Committee, what we're doing here is approving to sign the purchase agreement.
Yeah.
The purchase agreement, we've got a 60-day due diligence in and out. Anything comes up, and it's not, it can be anything, just because we don't want to do it.
Right.
We can pull it, we can look back out of it,
And
and get a refund.
I think to that extent, we may need to, and my apologies, I didn't notice this until I went through it again last night. I looked at the original stuff, I didn't look at the resolution. The resolution we might want to alter slightly, because the resolution gives Mr. Scott the authority to close the deal.
We
And
just
I
want to
think
sign the purchase
what
agreement.
you're intending to do right now is give you authorization to sign the purchase agreement and enter into due diligence.
Yeah, that was my, that's the way I was reading it, that we are actually approving
That's fine.
a deal that moves forward.
And because we've talked that over the next 60 days, while we have due diligence, we would come back to finance, and finance would vet the financing options and if we had issues. So I think what the idea here would be was that we would approve, or we would give Mr. Scott the right to execute the purchase agreement as it's been presented,
Yeah.
and to move forward with due diligence,
With financing and
with
relocation and things.
all the due diligence items that are necessary prior to close. So that we are making a decision on the actual closing at this point in time, because we have diligence we need to do.
Yeah.
And then following due diligence, the process would be to follow up with who before you close the deal.
Well, we're going to have to follow up in finance, and we're going to either have to make a decision and I'll let you folks do that at the board level, but either with operations committee or development committee, we're going to discuss the relocation and the plan for plans and feedback from you guys on that.
And the board has to approve any financing package, because the bank's going to require
So
a
probably the due
resolution.
diligence, the board would have to find out, but the due diligence would be done in the respective committees. And
You
I'm
know,
comfortable with that.
You guys got to understand, this deal, and Brian and Judy and Michael we can appreciate this deal went down literally 4.5 weeks ago. And, you know, we were in negotiations with the United Way, and they had another buyer. So we had to kind of hastily put this together and making sure that we didn't put the cat out the bag, because the price was going to be bidded up if we didn't keep this kind of.
The intent here is to tie up the property. So tie up the property, we
I look at it
have,
as an option.
we tie up the property, we have our ability to do our diligence, which I think we will vet through at least the financing, particularly the financing package to the finance committee. We can vet the relocation and the other issues surrounding it through operations or development. The only thing I would say there is those committees are both made up of people on the finance committee and Jamie Berglund, who would participate anyway. So I would offer, Karen, if you want to participate in some of the vetting process, you and I can talk about involving you instead of Jamie Berglund. And then if you want to.
No, yeah.
So I think that's how we would move there, vet the financing through finance, and then just the general parts of the deal, we can keep Karen, you involved.
And I don't need to be involved deeply. There were just some things in here that I looked at as a whole and just had some concerns, and I understand better now. One final item. The suggested funding from the foundation. As part of this, there's something that you had raised as part of your question. I actually prefer the loan perspective, and I would ask that you really look through that as opposed to a gift or a pulling of funds from the foundation, because we pretty much deplete the foundation funds. And while you are absolutely correct, it is not illegal. It's just a matter of really looking at the articles and really understanding the intent of what a foundation should be. I am concerned that we would utilize the majority of those funds in this manner. So I would prefer a loan type arrangement where OHA would pay back the funds to the foundation and not deplete the foundation. Because it's really pulling all the funds
No,
out. And you just routed me something today where we're asking the community to give to our foundation, and we're going to self-absorb most of the funds on this. So I'd like to see us also give back to the foundation in that way from the loan perspective. Now that would come up as a part of the financing structure, so I'll defer all of that dialogue to the committee. But I'd like it to be on record that I really think it should be some type of a loan and not a pulling or total drawing down of the funds from that foundation account.
We understand.
I would disagree with you, Karen. I think that's a good idea.
The only problem you may run into is the bank may want cash in the deal and not a loan that has to get repaid.
That's the,
We can work through how we do that, because it's internal.
That's my own, that would be the only thing that would come up. Even though it's, foundation. I don't know.
I guess the question I would have is, the foundation a separate legal entity? And if it isn't, then it's just a fund and not a foundation. Does anyone know the answer to that question?
It's a separate entity.
Yeah, it is.
It's an 901c3, right?
Yeah.
It's a separate.
So are there any federal regulations about that may conflict with what we're trying to do in terms of how foundations operate? Has anyone done
I had asked
research
Judy
on
that, because that was my concern, so whether we had legal issues with doing it that way. Most of the bond money, is it?
Yeah, not really. Yes and no.
And there was not Hawkins was in there.
Scheme of things, no.
There was some funding from the Hawkins and some other things. I don't know the proportion, but that's the only thing on there. last item on this. It's not related to this building, but the other acquisition that we are engaging. I thought I saw somewhere that we would have operating costs that we would begin to share on the other facility starting around May. or June.
Operating costs.
Operating costs. There was something in the timeline that you prepared for us on the Mid-City building, that there would be a sharing of operating costs.
Mid-City, we haven't, we don't have any fiduciary or contractual relationships or any kind of relationships at this point with that building.
Okay.
Zero.
We did vote to pay for the sharing of the cost in our February meeting.
Yeah, those were pre-development.
Pre-development
expenses
costs.
that were incurred
Okay.
in the prior year.
So the sharing of operating costs, should we move forward? The sharing of operating costs, which was proposed in one of the documents, there was something that we were to share in an operating perspective. Right now, we have no cost on the table.
Yeah, there's no, we have no relationships or any kind of formalized or informalized obligations to anybody relative to that building.
And that would come back to the board before we move forward, so we have an opportunity to look at that and balance that against the expenses that we would be taking on in this.
I can categorically say that we have no financial tie whatsoever to that building.
Okay.
At all.
Thank you.
Now, this is the first I've heard of what you're talking about, quite frankly. We paid for, the board approved redevelopment expenses, and, for all intents and purposes, that situation has been closed. To date, we haven't had any, there hasn't been anything formalized or executed whatsoever with respect to that block.
Okay, and then I'll just follow up with you. I can show you after, you and Judy after the
I
meeting.
think this may
But
have
I just
been
wanted to
in
be sure so that
prior.
I understood the cost implications. That's okay.
Yeah, you scare me if you say we have no cost on,
No, I'll take you at your word saying no, and then I'll just follow up with you afterwards. I'm good.
all right.
So it sounds like we would, I don't know, Judy or Brian is working on the resolution, but an amendment to the resolution that would indicate that the director be able to take all action necessary to execute purchase agreement and commence due diligence activities would be my suggestion. That's in both the last recital and in the actual resolution paragraph. And if that amendment is acceptable, I would accept the motion or.
Motion to amend, motion to approve it subject to the amendment.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Rowland?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes. Thank you very much. Go forth and have some fun with this, and let's see what we get done.
Let's all have a
job.
donut, folks.
I'm sorry, I wanted to say on that. You guys really did a great job. The information was very, very thorough, very good. Thank you so much. It was really easy to follow through, and I thank you for presenting the information for the board to fully see the transaction.
Cheryl.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sugar burn
Uh, That, move on to reports and discussion items. We'll let them, if you're going to bring me a donut.
We have to have please.
I've never turned down a donut.
Councilman, please.
I'm done.
You're from Cleveland, Ohio.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda, reports, discussion items. Go with financials. Got a donut? Jared said no.
Please, yeah, you start.
I'm having one.
Go ahead. You're fine.
Got the large financial information
Yes.
in front of you there. We'll briefly go through each of these cost centers. Public housing for the month had revenue of $1.1 million against expenses of $1.2 million for an overall loss of $141,000. For the month, we had the Yardi software renewal, which was $45,000. Utilities were high, but they were even out during the year. We also had higher expenses for appliance and HVAC and feedback due to reactive inspections. And we also had 2 burn unit repairs to the tune of roughly $22,000.
We discussed this in the finance committee, and of course, we know that utilities should level out, and we had, the one-time expense for our software. We will get reimbursed somewhat on the insurance that we put some, expenses out for. But we do know this year that basically this is going to be very difficult to bring this section of public housing just back in at a break even. So everybody's aware of the expenses, and we're really taking a look at most of that, because we're struggling with this division to just get back to a break even by year end. So.
And also of note, we have not received the operating portion of the 2015 capital funds from HUD yet. That equates to roughly $48,000 a month, so $100. It's $577,000 on an annual basis. Those dollars will be coming, it's just a matter of when HUD's going to release those funds to us. That'll help even things out as we go forward. The next segment is Section 8, voucher program. We have revenues of $2,432,000 against expenses of $2,464,000. This is basically a break-even proposition only. Year to date, we're over on grants and subsidies for Section 8 to the tune of $214,000, and we're over in expenses $288,000. So basically, it's money in, money out. With the attempt to break even by year end. Next cost center is Section 8 admin. Revenues for the month of $187,000 approximately, with expenses of $238,000. Items of note on the revenue side, we're under budget by $23,000, due in large part to the administrative fee and subsidy monies that we get from HUD with reduction of 6.5% from HUD. Each year they adjust how much they give us for these various subsidies and fees, and we're down 6.5% from HUD. So that drives the top line. And again, we had Yardi renewal flowing also through Section 8 admin. And the resident service expenses, you'll see on the financials, there's no budget picked up for those expenses for Section 8 admin. Those dollars are budgeted over on the COCC side. So maybe at mid-year we'll adjust the budget to pull some of those dollars over to reflect on this for the cost center. Next cost center is the central office. Revenues for the month of $337,000 against expenses of $305,000 for a net income of $31,000. Again, at the bottom you see we have not received the HUD hard cost money. In this case, it's the 10% monies that we get from the management portion. That is normally received $288,000 for the year, which equates to about $24,000 a month. Again, we haven't received those dollars yet. So the cost center is doing well. Last cost center is HIO. HIO for the month had revenue of approximately $109,000 against expenses of $243,000, and then transfers in of $43,000. So total inflows of $152,000 against expenses of $243,000 for a net loss of $91,000. The lion's share of that $91,000 is the real estate taxes that we paid, which was $87,000. So other than those real estate taxes, it would have been a relatively break-even proposition. So those are the main financials that we present each month. Starting first quarter of 2015, we're presenting the financials at the camp level. So that next section is the high-level summary of the results by each location, broken down by zone. This is high level, and what was provided to operations was the actual P&Ls for each specific location with each line item for all the relative expenses. So you can see at a high level where each of these came in revenue versus expenses, and we won't go through item by item. The last section is payables, the monthly recap of where we stand on payables. The vendors that we have here are the normal players that we have, as you see, currently owed, are reflected in the 0 to 30 day category. And again, through reiteration, the clock starts ticking once the approvals are all done on all of the approvals that they put in the system. That's when the 30-day window starts. So, any questions?
Just a comment. I do think it's important for the board to receive a balance sheet. I know the finance committee reviews this information, but I think it's important for the board to see not just the P&L perspective, but also a balance sheet for the organization as well. And I thank you. I know you sent me one after I brought this up the last time, but I think it's important for the whole board to understand the balance sheet perspective. Have you heard anything back? We haven't heard anything back.
Yeah, we did. HUD has, we are not negotiating at the local level with HUD. So we're directly negotiating with headquarters. We're going to send to the finance committee a resolution next month for approval for us to begin repayment of those funds. We think the negotiations are going to drag out given the lack of information that HUD has not provided us. So we're going to be working with the finance committee and the chair to on that resolution. It's already draft form.
Once that begins, where will they come from?
We budgeted for it in our 2014 agency budget.
It has to be unrestricted.
Yeah, central.
Central, it has to, we cannot use restricted funds for this.
So we can't use public housing operating funds, or we can't use funds from the Section 8 program. It has to come from the central office.
Which is part of the reason why the initial suggestion that was made by HUD as a lump sum payment was challenging because it would defeat all of our central office funds.
I'm going to be providing you guys probably next week with 200-page assessment and analysis of what we've done to date as it pertains to due diligence. I did this personally.
Don't look at me. He's looking at me smiling like I'm going, yes.
I don't want to say anything on the camera.
It's okay.
We've asked for information in June of last year. We did not receive it, so we're going to have to find that information another way. And Brian is working, Brian and Judy are working on that. We think given our purchase of this building, probably good faith for us to move forward with some kind of thing. So we're going to work with finance to do that.
The letter we received from Denise yesterday, which I've got to bring in and scan it to the board today. Would you send a copy to the board?
Yeah, that's going to be included in that package, so we can talk about this all day. I'm fired up on this.
No, I don't disagree with Mr. Scott. We did receive a letter from Denise Gibson, at least I received it yesterday, and she sent it to me, to the board, care of me. So I meant to bring that to you this morning, and my apologies, I forgot. So I'll have Mr. Scott scan it and send it out to you. And it simply says that the field office is no longer going to be working with us on the repayment agreement. They'll be directing it to a different office. Anything else on the financials? Okay. Moving forward to asset management.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have our report before you. Just want to highlight a few items. We had 10 properties that were at 100% occupancy. 6 other were at 99%. We basically had 19 properties that were at 98% or greater, which is a great accomplishment. Also, I just want to touch upon recertifications. If you notice, they have increased by quite a bit, but there's quite a few of them that are going through the legal action, so we should have most of those cleared up in the next month or two.
Do you have any questions for Terrace? Mayo?
Well, I'm happy to admit that I know it doesn't show on this report, but our townhomes that we've had high occupancy at, we have families scheduled to be moving in there. Hopefully some will be today. So they'll show up on this month's report, but they're all ready to be leased.
Wonderful. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or anything else for Terrence and Susan? No? We'll go on to Section 8. Good morning, Joan.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have my monthly report. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. We are still looking toward opening our waiting list sometime in May or June. We really don't know for sure. We still have maybe right around 250 families left on our current waiting list. So I hope to maybe schedule a time that we can open it maybe sometime in the month of June.
Why don't you talk about your designation?
Yes.
The CMAP.
Oh, CMAP. Our CMAP score came back from local HUD, and we are considered a high performer in Section 8, thanks to all the hard work for our staff. And also FSS. I'm part of that. Don't want to leave Sal out.
Is it ever possible to leave Sal out?
No, it's not.
All right, well, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Thank you very much for everything you guys have done. Does anyone have anything else for Joan? That will move on. Let's see. HIO did not meet last month. So we'll go on to Sport Department reports, capital development and construction. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Commissioners. In my report, notice Southside Terrace, we'll be bringing that to you in May. You can get the application, although we have someone started the process, and we'll start having meetings with residents. The first resident meeting is scheduled in July, in a couple of weeks, and we'll begin to go through that process. So stay tuned with that. We also, you guys approved the A&E for the UFIS, so we're going to begin with the elderly towers to start going inside the towers and doing the UFIS requirements inside those buildings. So those are all budgeted. Other than that, let me know if you have any other questions.
Sure. Can you let us know when you can let the board know when you're going to have that meeting with residents?
Yeah.
Okay.
When is it set?
Is on May 13th at 5 o'clock at the South YMCA.
At South Y?
Yes.
Okay.
And when the other one's here, there's another one here. When is that?
The 7th.
May
That's
7th.
that's a public hearing.
We're having
Public hearing for what?
For this.
Significant amendments to the PG.
Okay.
For this, for Southside.
Okay.
Um,
The 7th is going to be a public hearing. Where are we doing the public hearing?
Here.
Here.
At
Okay.
9 a.m.
Okay. You can
And that's on the
remind us, send
PHA
out-
agreement.
Just send an email or remind us of those.
And as always, make sure you let the commissioners know if there's anything you need or would be helpful from us. If anyone who would, if commissioners, just make sure you let staff know if you attend any of those meetings so that we don't violate open meetings laws by having more than 3 commissioners attend. We can, we'll just have a trial way to do that. Just make sure that you let somebody know if you're going to attend those meetings.
Is it the attendance or is it just the very attendance of it? I thought we just didn't make decisions of it.
You can't make decisions, but if you are all gathered in one place, particularly, I would be more concerned about the PHA amendment. If you have any discussions that would be information briefings, discussing policy, anything like that, would be considered to be a violation of the Open Meetings Act if you have more than, if you have a quorum of
Okay,
commissioners
so
present.
we could sit as a, just observer.
You could sit in that as long as nothing was said. My concern would be if you go forward, in the past when you go forward things like that, discussions happen, things start to happen, people start to talk, and then all of a sudden you're having conversations you're not supposed to be having without having public notice. So,
There's a public notice on that right now.
on the PHA
Yeah,
hearing.
that's done.
But as a board meeting.
Right.
Okay. So then if we had a quorum.
Is it as a board meeting? No, it's not, but it did a public notice for
the
that. I
meeting.
believe we're still covered though. I'm pretty sure we are.
Okay. There's been a lot of activity lately about open meetings laws in the state, so I make sure we take care not to violate anything.
Stay under the radar on that.
Yeah. But it's always safe just to let people know if you're going to attend, so that way we can manage that issue. Okay. Anything else for Ryan? If not, we'll go on procurement.
Good morning, Commissioners. You've got my report in front of you. I'd just like to mention the mayor has started a new campaign for visit ag businesses, emerging businesses. She's put together a roundtable which begins discussions tomorrow, and our staff has been invited to participate in it. So we'll get it.
I think it's interesting, Yardy isn't a Section 3 participant RDB.
Yes.
Software provider of public housing.
The prices stayed the same for 20 years. I think family much.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Steve?
Probably not. Steve, we'll get together and talk about some of this. I've got a couple people on there, a couple of organizations on here. I just want to know what you're saying. And I'll be good.
All right, anything else in procurement? Any other comments or questions for Steve? All right, we'll go on to human resources. Good morning.
Busy interviewing and filling positions. For those positions that are currently filled as of today.
I would just note congratulations to Nicole Molina for her new position, although she will be missed as our, at least I consider my jack of all trades, everything I possibly could ever need or want, I get it from her. So whoever fills your shoes has very big shoes to fill. But congratulations, it sounds like things are going well and you're enjoying your position. Okay, anything else for Gail?
Yes, I wanted to know status of the salary survey. Did you go out looking for other salary survey?
Yes.
Remember that?
I do remember that, and I also remember that at the last meeting, staff stated that there weren't funds available, and it was going to be examined that.
We're going to look for some, we find funds for other things. So just wanted to look at some creative opportunities, continue to benchmark. We're not the only person with this problem. Just don't want it to go away and fall off the table as nothing that we need to do. I see it as an open item that I just want us to close somewhere, and I know there's a way to close it. We have a very creative team, resourceful. We've seen it with the building transactions that we're working on. I'd like to see it for this. It's equally as important for us to get it done.
What are the position titles we're looking for in the study?
We were actually going to do all the positions, all the union
Or even if we just
So
carve
all
out.
union and non-union? is that
Yes,
what you said? Okay.
actually, all the positions that are not.
And maybe if we just carve out, it's just been such a long time, and we move forward, as you know, with a new performance evaluation methodology that goes into effect, and this is just a component of it that completes that whole transition of what we're doing.
Does HUD collect salary studies by region, by position type?
No,
like
just
some
as
other
the executive
organizations?
director.
Right.
Oh, that's
The
it.
highly compensated. Judy and I had discussed doing it ourselves, so we are looking at possibly just doing it ourselves for some of the other agencies ourselves. That's a lot of times to do that.
Next on the agenda is Family Community Services.
Good morning, Commissioner.
What's up?
You got my report in front of you. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Just a quick, Mr. Scott passed out the Omaha give information. We'll be glad to ask the board and also some of our staff to really try to give us names and phone numbers of any potential donors that you may have. And what we do on that day, we will have a call center that actually will be calling folks and just trying to remind them, hey, have you donated in that concept? And our goal is really trying to get probably about 1,000 names to that. And then also, this year, you actually can donate starting May 1st, so you don't have to wait until that day to actually donate. There's something that we're going to do, or just have a postcard that we're going to get out. We're going to do an email blast, Facebook, call center that I talk right now. Also, possibly do an open house here. We get us to have, we're not sure. And also, I know I haven't talked to Gail about this yet, but we probably ask staff to donate for dress down day or something like that. So, I know it's shaking. Directors too? No. We're not talking to them now. Then,
Now opened up a can of worms.
I know A gonna take that with him. But the second thing, I really want to thank the board members and also Clifford Scott to really approve our CNA program. Those 12 individuals will be graduating next Thursday, and they're going to be taking the state exam that Friday. And they will be. We got 2 organizations that will hire them, or well, not hire them, but interview them on the spot. What we'd like to do is I'll try to invite them to the board meeting next board meeting to talk about something. And then I know I was talking to Susan this morning. One thing that we really start to find is the strain on our welfare is not really people not working. It's just the underpaid job that they're taking. So this is really a great opportunity to really give an opportunity to just make a decent income. Then also the last thing is we're working on Operation Curb-Appeal. We're waiting for the step up to really assign us. The kids are supposed to start first week of June. Hopefully, we'll get about 20, 30 kids that be assigned to the hospital employee. We're going to have to do a modest landscaping, painting to all of our common areas and so forth. That's it. Any questions?
Benson fence goes up tomorrow. Brian?
Right.
That starts college, yeah, tomorrow.
The fence at Benson Power.
Just one, Madam Chairman. On the section where you're talking about job readiness training and referral to job fair, do we engage in some of that training, or is some of that training provided by OHA?
Yeah, we actually do a combination of both. We partner with the Joint First and some other agencies who actually come in and do our job training for us. We have staff that actually went to training recently that Ms. Watson helped set up. They actually trained to do some of those things, so we use it in some of our attorney's staff to actually do some of those training. But if you do have any other little resources out there that will help do some training, please feel free to let us know. Give those
We'll talk a little bit more later, but we approved, the city council approved this week $400,000 in this Department of Workforce Solutions, and that's going to be great. That will be. We've created that one-stop shop.
Yes.
And are we part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually pay a membership fee. Am I correct?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So
Space at Harvard.
yeah.
There's some for space at Harvard.
Yeah.
There's some opportunities here that will come up in the 2016 budget for resources to help the train.
Yeah, we actually get all that email and all that training.
Yeah.
That come up, we send a lot of our residents down there.
Okay, good. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else for Sal? Any questions? Okay. The next item, which is public safety. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have my report before you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I do want to point out, I know the combined incident reports look like it's a huge spike. I actually look at that somewhat encouraging because that means more residents are calling, letting us know what's going on as far as rules violations. We're getting the information as to knowing what's going on our property. We also use those informational reports to help communicate with staff. And possible trends and things that are going on. If you look at just the crime-related incidents, it did go up a little bit from last month, but it's pretty much on target for a normal March with the nicer weather coming. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
This may be for you or maybe for Mr. Scott, either one, but I've noticed a little spike, not a lot, but a spike in the number of people that are calling out of fear that they have in some of our high-rise, with some of the people there who are not seniors. And I know we've addressed it over and over again, but I'm still getting those calls. There's still some people who have some fear.
Specifically where
Evans is one, Florence is one, Benson is a big one, and Jackson is not. I think I've gotten about 2 or 3 calls. All of them from the same individual, though, and that's the individual that was attacked one time. I think he's just being, just trying to be a little aggressive. But the other ones I do, the ones I just mentioned, I do have some concerns about.
Well, we'll sit down and meet. You got that name?
I got it.
Yeah, we'll sit down and meet with him and try to figure out, he may be just being accosted, on his own, targeted. He may just be getting targeted.
So I think that's what's happening. I think that's what's happening.
I got to be honest with you folks, with our public housing cost center and the challenges that we're having in that area, it's daunting for us to allocate additional resources for public safety.
I know.
I probably gonna have to meet with the chief again and ask him to put a higher presence of his officer at our towers. Sal's gonna have to engage our resident population in both of us to make sure that they understand the importance of this. But for me to say, okay, let's put more resources here for patrol.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about providing additional resources. I'm just saying that, one of the concerns that people continue to have is mixing seniors with disabled and people who claim to be disabled.
Mostly at Evans, I know, and even to some degree at Underwood, we're having those same, those different age groups as well as the racial at Underwood. But the biggest, from our perspective, we've been in this business quite a bit, a long time. It's the man hours, it's the presence, it's the police presence, and that is. I hate hiding behind the funding, but this is as tough as the kids in the funding. So
in those towers, are there ways to work with the resident associations and the site managers and people on site to come up with ways to help police themselves?
yeah, that's easier said than done too. We have to put our head together and figure out how to allocate more monies for patrols. I'm on camera, but currently we really have no OHA patrols at Evans, and it's much needed at Florence, and we do have patrols at Benson, but not enough. Jackson Tower is always going to be a challenging property for us, just because of the St. Mary Tower. So we just have to put our heads together and sharpen our pencils in that area. And our officers, quite frankly, probably have to be more aggressive in doing those knocks and locks, knocking on doors and introducing themselves to our residents. It's tough. I'm not even.
No question. And if you, because they call, because among the things they always say to me is that, don't call the police, don't have the police come to my door. I don't know how you get around that. That fear of retaliation. I mean, it just spiked for me in maybe a month or so, where I started getting calls like that. And then I had a former board member of this organization call as well, because she's gotten a couple calls.
We'll report back next month and kind of figure out what we're doing.
I know financially we're limited, and I'm not asking for us to do anything revenue-wise to adjust to try and correct that. I think there might be some other ways we might do that. I think we have a discussion about it first. Okay, so before we look at any allocation of dollars or anything else, I think we need to talk through this. Not in the board setting, I don't think, but maybe we need to talk about it. Maybe
Yeah, I have to reconnect with him.
yeah, we maybe include the chief in that, and I'd like to be included in that too.
Yeah.
Maybe we have a discussion about how we handle it. We need to get our, we're short 100 officers in Omaha. I don't know if you all know that, but we're down about 100 officers. And trying to make that work as well as the limited resources that we have here is going to be even a significant challenge for the chief.
I'll set that up and leave it.
Okay. And let's talk through this first before we talk about money and everything else. Let's just talk through this.
I understand.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does anyone have anything else on public safety? All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is legal. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning. I submitted my report on time, so. Two items to note. Lion King has been dismissed for lack of prosecution. Claiming to file a certification during trial. That does mean that it can be set back to the same trial date as long as the files are fairly quickly. But that being said, he hasn't. Lion King attorney specifically. So that was, the notice of that dismissal was sent out at the end of March. Still, as of this morning,
That was out, so it's been a month.
yeah, so it's been a
Trial
while.
is set for the end of August.
Yes, and I'll be meeting with George Ochoa, hopefully next week. We did have a meeting scheduled to discuss this case last week, but we had to reschedule. George had a The other matter was a discrimination claim from Mark Rice that was dismissed. I believe that I am all caught up now on the notices for evictions that have kind of been backlogged in the absence of the general counsel. So Commissioner Gray, that might have some impact on that public safety issue. Okay. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
On the second page of your report, the second item from the bottom, cut it requesting information by 3/31, and we submitted it on 4/15. You noted it in there. I wasn't sure if there was some significance to us that we missed the date. Is there any impact on that case because of that?
No, I don't believe there's any impact on the case. I was working with Judy on that item, and her mother had passed away. We were in contact with HUD the entire time, so they're understanding. They requested quite a bit of information in a very short amount of time, so it did take some time to collect that, and then we're just being out of town, it was delayed, but we were in constant contact.
This is,
Yes,
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
yes.
Does anyone have anything else for Brian? New business? I don't think we have any need for an executive session yet. So I will entertain a motion.
What's that, guys?
Second.
No, motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call, please. Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Romano? Yes. Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson? Yes.
And they don't have to approve my motion, but I'm leaving.
Well, you know, sometimes I like
Sometimes you want to, if y'all want to stay, that's
There you
good. Yeah,
Oh, we need to have a foundation meeting?
yeah, we,
Sorry. Thank you, Scott.
that's why I adjourned. I thought we had
Yeah,
this.
we have.
Thank you.
I was like, well, that, there's other things, just Y'all want to adjourn? Yes, okay.